All right, so thanks for having me. So my name is Jerome Lacote, and I'm going to talk about user interface and maybe what's going to be the future of user interface. So I'm a visual and experience designer. People say like a UI artist, UI designer, UI UX. It's like all these names are really confusing. Graphic designer, and so I work for like many different companies. I guess half of my life on the video game industry for Rockstar Games, Activision, Disney. And to kind of give you a better understanding of my perspective where I come from, just to tell you, my experience, tell a bit more about my story. So my first love was photography. It's not true. My first love was music, but I realized that I could go to the rock concert for free if I was taking pictures there. So for different magazines, so I started to take pictures, and I just kind of fell in love with photography. At this time, I was studying psychology, and I realized like I was more creative person, so I went to art school. At this time, I discovered like Adobe Photoshop 3. It was amazing. Like remember I'm like a little rat in this dark room, and I can work on my pictures, in real time. So it was pretty amazing. And at this time, it was kind of the beginning of everything digital, interactive. And in the meantime, I also learned about Macromedia Flash 3. Before Flash has been, Flash has been acquired by Adobe, and I think you guys are familiar with Adobe Flash, and I think now it's being renamed Animate. And this software was pretty amazing to me because with the same package, I discovered it was a software built for like animation, cartoons, this type of things. But people said to embrace this software for anything interactive on the web. So in the same package, I was able to do some illustration, import some textures, create something as simple as a little button, or like create a full website. In I guess version 3, version 4, I started to bring some way to program and to add some interactivity to be a bit more powerful. So I've learned my way, and I learned how to kind of program with Flash, and at some point you can even I've been working on video games fully built in Flash. And it was in late 90s. It was the internet bubble. It was back in France, in Paris, and everybody wanted a website. So I knew a little bit of Flash, a bit of HTML. So I ended up starting to work with different customers on pretty much anything. People had like no real expectation on what's supposed to be a website, what type of content, what kind of interactivity we should have. So it was kind of like the Wild West, really like a playground. And I think it's still like the case now. You can see how easy it is to make a movie and publish it on YouTube. It's like in my time, like I'm really old. 20 years ago, you couldn't do that. You could, do a movie on film. It was really expensive, or on video, or like maybe you could duplicate in your bedroom, like some VHS, and sell them to your friend, or you have to find somebody to publish it. It was like you didn't have like this opportunity to reach the world like this just by putting something online. So it was really exciting to be able to just create something new and just put it online, get feedback from people, and just experiment. The same. And I think now people have more expectation what should be an interactive service, what should be online, what should be this type of object. So there's less freedom, and it's kind of a little an evolution. We'll see that later. So it's kind of different project that I've been working on, and something happened. I was working on the marketing side, doing like packaging, all kind of different visuals for a video game company called Rockstar Games, and I guess they liked my work, and they said to hire me to work on a video games project in the studio in the US. I moved in the US to work with them. It was kind of a really different world because I was coming from I had like this little web design studio. We were like 5 or 6. Everybody was doing a bit of everything, and I went in this like big 100 people working on this big project for like 2 or 3 years, and like the roles were really really defined. Kind of, like a concept artist, 3D artist, 2D artist, all kind of different developers, network, graphics, gameplay, all type of designers. So I ended up being like the UI artist, and I said to be more focused on like UI only, and how the user interact with the game, like with the. I mean, I guess I need to kind of talk a bit more about that. In video game, like the UI, it's like a really defined object. It's like this. Typically, it was like these 2D screens you have between each piece of gameplay, like all your pretty much like your menus and your heads-up display. That's like the 2 pieces of UI in the video game industry. And so I've been working for like this many different projects. And what was one more note about that. And in the video game industry, UI is just like it's an afterthought. It's like something you do at the end. You create your game, or people try to get fancy graphics, have some fun gameplay. At the end, like, oh, we need a UI. That's true. Let's call this guy who's sitting in the corner, and he needs to make a UI. And people, you don't sell video games, because the UI is great. You sell it because you have nice screenshot in magazine or like online. With Rockstar, it was a bit different because Rockstar games they have a take a bit more like cinematographic on video games. I think it's a more modern approach. Like initially, video games were came from arcade, where you just put a coin, you play for 3-5 minutes, game over. You have your UI, and the UI is really meant to be something frustrating. Like, oh, it's the end of the gameplay. I click it, I hit it, put one more coin, play again. So it's a really different scenario than when you play in your living room, when you just want to, chill and Netflix, chill and play. You don't want to be interrupted with screens like that. So Rockstar had like this idea. They wanted to have games that are more like a movie, when you kind of are engaged, are immersed in like something special, and so they were like more receptive as like at doing something else with UI, having UI being more part of the game instead of like being this like endpoint, of your experience. So, for example, a project I've been working on, kind of like 10 years ago, it was for Midnight Club. So it was really the typical arcade game. You race a car, 3 minutes, game over, play again. And they wanted to do something else where you have more an adventure, and you progress step by step in this world. You kind of meet different characters, and you kind of build this story. And it's almost like the racing is like some like some cut in the story. They almost reversed the logic here. And what I've been doing for this game, we said, okay, instead of having like this 3D world and like these 2D screens, we want to put this 2D screen in the 3D world. So we decided to project the menus on buildings in the city, and instead of being just like menus that goes from one to one, the camera would travel to the city, and you would go from menu to another menu. It was on PS2, so not really powerful, especially when like all the programmers took all the memory to get some fancy graphics. You just have like 12K left for UI, so you have to kind of be creative and smoosh everything in what's left for you. For the next iteration of the same game, we've been able to push that further. We were on a more powerful platform, because on Xbox 360, and we were able to actually display the UI on like a 3D panel. So it's kind of, I guess, what you see right here. And it was almost like character in your game. Where this thing would pop when you pause the game. For example, the menu would pop, the camera would move, and all this was like really cinematographic. You had like everything was really camera based. Yes.
So I guess have you introduced the artist Hello Day when he was UI for a lot of movies?
No.
Okay, so he does the much for like Iron Man and
Yeah, okay.
kind of UI. And so I was wondering, were you inspired by other artists like that, or did you kind of come up with these like in-game like kind of conventional UI on your own?
So like I was saying, it's old. It's like something 2010. So like these movies were not here. So we were kind of doing something new. Now it's like everybody's doing that, thing being displayed in 3D. At this time, it was not even possible to display UI in 3D world. The technology was not built for that. The game engines were not built for that. So we had kind of to build our own engine. It was also something typical with Rockstar Games. They kind of build their own engine so they can come with whatever technology fit what they want to do. And it's just like later than like really game engines start to integrate way to display like 2D plane in 3D. It's even like super new with some engine like Unity or Unreal, just like a few years ago. So we were kind of in advance, at these times. Now it's really generic. Everybody does that. I think I thought about that because there was like this ad for like a car insurance. I think it's called Performance or something, and then like these graphics that were displayed in 3D around the car. So it's like, hey, it's a cool way to interact with it. It's still, like it's not as exciting now because it's like everybody does that. But this time it was kind of new because remember your PS2 game where you just you play with this guy somewhat 3D and you're like this just 2D screen that's 10 and you goes away. You have this little piece of gameplay. Something else happened after that. After working for this different company for Activision, I went to Disney and we started to work on like some totally different games, were social and mobile game, and even if it's still a game, the logic is totally different. A console game, it's you pay that upfront, like when you go see a movie, you know if it's going to be good or not. You pay for it, and eventually you'll have a good experience. Not really viral. You interact with the controller, big screen, so resolution. On social and mobile, the business model is like a free-to-play. So you play. Eventually, if you like it, you pay something to play the game. So the UI in this environment came from like being like this bastard child we hate, this thing we do at the end that's annoying, to be like, oh, this golden child, like the UI has to be good because people actually monetize to UI, and all these companies became really more UI centric because if they're going, it depends on UI if they're going to make money or not. So they pay more more attention to that. You have more like a data-driven approach, more kind of scientific in some way. We test different options. We test we A/B test what kind of buttons, the position, what kind of the layout works or not for the different people. So actually learned a lot just in this, just in what's a good UI, what's a good UX, working in this context. Obviously, you have some also obvious difference between a controller and using a touch screen, or like using your mouse if it's a social game on Facebook, for example. So all that has some definite impact on how you design UI. And kind of bring us to kind of our era. I think now like UI UX start to be more mature. It's valued by stakeholders, by customers. Everybody wants to have a nice UI. Everybody start a startup. They want to create a software with a nice UI. The patterns, the best practices are defined, and the tools are also more mature. We start to have tools that are just built for UI UX and not just take some piece in Photoshop and put something else. Eventually, we'll be able to prototype something. Now you can just something that's built in. Adobe just released. I think it's not UX. I think it's XD. Just like few weeks ago, just last week. Software we can just design everything or your UX. They're mostly focused on mobile and desktop and prototype and iterate in that. Where before it was kind of just like you use these tools. None of them are built for UI. Photoshop it's for pictures and you try to get some comps with it. Illustrator for something else. So there were like no good solution. Even I've been working in the video game industry it has been my goal to find like a good tool for UI. I've been working with engineers to try to develop a tool inside different company, and it's not that easy. It was really like a struggle to get something, because it's not like a UI. It's sometimes the content is dynamic, and you have all type of a new. It's like a new context, and you have new parameters that are really different than just making like photo editing software. So I'm really happy this software are coming now, are available. It makes our life much easier. So I talk often differently of UI UX. So I want just to go back to that, to give you a bit of feel of what we call UI and UX. So you have your user and you have your product. In this case, it's a bicycle. So your UI is like your seat, that's like your handlebar. That's how you kind of operate. That's how you give your input to the bicycle. And the UX, it's like the experience of riding the bike. So if you think about an app, about a website, your UI is like your buttons. It's how you interact with the digital product, and the UX is like the experience of doing it. In kind of from a production perspective, UI UX, that's kind of the division. So like visual design, different UI, like design of the type of controllers. And on the other side, UX, it's also more like, it's almost related to market research. Look to what the user wants, how to use, how is going to use the UI or the service, what kind of, in which kind of context. That's kind of the rules. That's what you find if you Google it. My experience is a bit different. I think it's more like, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm doing more prototyping, visual design, and also work on this other aspect. So it's never, I think it's not really a job to be a UI, to be a UX designer. It's more like, everybody doing a little bit of it. And it depends of what's your team, what's the dynamic, in your context. So what I'm doing now, so I'm working on still working on like traditional devices for doing some websites, some apps. I'm also working currently with Qualcomm on some to kind of define the way to interact with some upcoming hardware, like some new type of phone, this type of stuff. It's kind of exciting. And also launching a startup called Agenea, and it's a product for like athletes, and the idea is to combine like all the different data, devices, sensors they can use, and display that in a virtual heads-up display with some augmented reality devices. So now I would like to get a better vision of what's maybe going to happen. I think it's interesting to think about more conceptually what's a UI. So if you take this definition, UI is a layer between a user and a system. It's a support of interactivity. You have like two directions. The user sends some command to a system, to like a machine, a computer, whatever you call it, and the computer reacts to it and give you feedback pretty much, and the cycle can start again. It's pretty much like a dialogue. And this picture is funny because it's kind of how things are. Like you try to speak human to machine, and the machine replies trying to speak human, but she speaks machine, and it's kind of goes this way. And I think the goal is to try to make this dialogue more efficient and more like either way. The humans have to speak machine very well, and they can't speak. It was kind of what we were doing now. Or the machine has to pick better humans so they can understand each other better. So like a really simple UI, it's like a light switch, right? You just press it, change something, reacts to your command, and and you can press it back or whatever. So it's like really simple way to define it. In the digital world, what does it mean? It means like your interface is virtual. It's not really virtual because you think just about your computer. If you have like an app that will turn the light, you're not going to do nothing. You actually click on a button. So it's like your hardware. It's like your mouse. It's like your touch screen. So they like still like this aspect, and for some time, like for like the last, let's say, 20 years, we thought like, oh, it's defined. It's mouse. If you work on a computer, it's a touch screen, and we don't really question that too much. I think that's maybe a mistake. It's something we want to question a bit more, like what kind of interface you actually have in the machine. What's a physical interface? And like, obviously now most focus is like on what's a virtual interface. So you don't press a button, you press a picture of a button, and the challenge for like a UI designer is to make people understand what to do, and that we are able to use this virtual interface to do what they have to do. And it brings us like to like this heated discussion between between skeuomorphism and flat design, and people fight and kill each other to say which one is better. And I think it's more like a cycle. It's in a normal evolution. At first, like skeuomorphism, it's like kind of the old iOS 7, where like things looks like real. Like you have your calculator, for example. It looks like a real one. But the button, you can almost touch it. You see it's shiny. It's like skeuomorphism, and like I think it's a natural tendency. Each time you have something new, try to see what was in the past, and that's close enough and can help people to understand. So to make a calculator, well, you just like make it look like a real calculator, and people understand really easily what to do. When people get used to what's a calculator on a virtual screen and they know to use it, well, you can simplify the design. You don't need like all this shininess, all that. You can just make square. And at some point, I think we went a bit too far. Like if you think about Microsoft Metro, like their interface, where it was really flat. You can't really understand, what's interactive, what's not, what's part of the feedback. It was a bit confusing. So kind of Google came with the material design, which is kind of just a flat design, but adding more depth, being a bit more subtle with it. So you can add shadow and things like that. So you understand. We have different levels. You can understand what's behind, what's not, what's pressed, what's not pressed. You can have like a better perspective on that. I also want to show you two examples of skeuomorphism. Tell you, I'm not necessarily against skeuomorphism, even if it's kind of now it's dead. Everybody hate it. There's like a good way to do it, or a bad way. The shelf in the iBooks, it's a big fail. It's like pictures are small. If you want to add more, you have like a file space. So pretty much you reproduce on a digital media what sucks in your life. Like, oh, I have no room for my book. I have to move. It's hard to read. I mean, there's no value for this being digital. Go to your bookstore. You don't need to use the shelf. And what's interesting with the cover flow, it's like in this case they use what's the essence of the experience of like browsing to some books, and sometimes there's even like some emotion. People like to do that, to go through pictures, and they try to give you more like superpower with that. You can see very well what's selected. You have an idea of what's right, what's left. You can quickly go from from the first one to the last one, which you can't really in real life. So it kind of takes something that already exists and make it better because the digital platform. I think what I felt is like it's really good for like pictures, movies and such. But when you use it for your file system, well, all my files kind of look the same. My browser, my folders, they look the same. So they were so excited by it, like, we found this, it's great. They wanted to use it everywhere, and like it doesn't make so much sense. So I don't know if people use too much cover flow when they browse with their Word document or Excel file. So my position is not really popular. I'm going to be against the stream with that. I think usability is overrated. What does it mean? And if you remember, me coming from the video game industry perspective, a game that would be usable, it means like a game that would be easy. Like, I can easily, raise that or grab that or accomplish this goal. And if it's easy, it's not fun. You need a little challenge, and that's when you can, overcome this challenge. That's fulfilling, and you feel like you accomplished something, and you have, you have pleasant experience with that. Like an analogy I use also is like a toy or a tool. A toy just means to do something, a specific task. You're not supposed to enjoy it. Sometimes you can, and like people, enjoy some tool. But I think it's more like the value of a toy. A toy is something that's built to have a enjoyable experience, something you can enjoy. So I would like the UI or like in general like software to be more an enjoyable experience. And I think especially now, like the expectations are set, the standards are set on what's supposed to be a good UI, and plus everybody's doing a good job at it. So all the apps are about the same. So for something to be successful, it needs to have more value, to bring some emotion, to you feel like you accomplished something by doing it. An example is Snapchat, for example. There's like many ways to share pictures. There's no real value in having another one. What they did is they get from this simple thing to share a picture. You can send an email, you can text your picture, you can do different way. They took like this simple action and just made like a fun experience with that, just by adding a little twist. The interface is actually not really usable. It's why this picture is going to last for like 5 seconds? It's not usable. I want to be able to see it all the time. I want all the feature. I want to be able to save it, archive it, to tag it with different name. That would be a usable app. It's not really usable, but it's something fun to use. That's something people enjoy. It's the same with like many other app like this, like Tinder, for example. That kind of takes something that's really typical to the platforms I use, like for example, gesture, something really new on your smartphone, instead of just mimicking what we used to do on desktop and just like click like I was clicking on the desktop. So that we take advantage of the medium and to be able to convey like a fun experience. The new frontier. So what's the new frontier? Yes?
Sorry, can you just expand on your third point as to why exactly friction has value?
So what, sorry?
Why does friction have
Friction value? Yes. So when you think about a game, if you want to, let's say that game, Mario, you play Mario, right? If it was super easy to go from one point to another point, it's not really fun to go from screen to screen.
It's friction in terms of that, not in terms of like a frictionless experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to understand that.
Yes, and even so it's like obviously you can say like the game is kind of a different thing, but I think in some, for example, an interface for learning or for social network, there's like value having something that are not as easy to use. You feel smarter when you found like how to do something. You have like power users and you have like the general users, so you want to see like, oh, I've been able to do something better. I found like a special feature. So like this, that's why I mean by friction. Obviously, when you want your customer to go buy something really quick, and you want to just optimize this path between visit the website to be a customer, friction is not really valuable. But if you want your user to engage with the brand, because it's not necessarily something you're going to buy right away, there's value to have some friction, so user feel it's engaged, he found something special, he has been able to to overcome a challenge using a website, an app, or whatever. Then the user is also more engaged. It's like kind of like in the real life. If it's like you don't remember things that are not memorable because it's just easy. If you add a little friction, then you will remember like, oh, I had a hard time to find a spot to park here. I guess I'm going to remember that now. I'm going to be engaged. I'm going to talk about my friends. That is crazy. Parking lot here. The room are really small. You have to add some friction to find a spot. I'm going to remember that. I'm not necessarily to be engaged by going in this parking lot all the time, but I will remember. So you have to create some friction and you have to find the good balance between, if it does bring value or not. Does it kind of explain?
Yeah.
Yeah? No. So I'd like now to talk about, what's eventually going to be the future, what I see user interface to be in the future. I think we're trying to get toward more like a natural interaction, like between human to human. For now, the easiest way to interact with a computer, to get the most of it, is to really write code, right? If you want, and the computer is really good at doing something complex. If you explain him with code, he will do it perfectly every time. If you want to explain something in a simpler way, it's going to be much more difficult. If you want, just like asking, where should I eat? It's not going to be necessarily really helpful. If you code, it's going to give you a good result. So we have to fill this gap between the machine, the computer, and the humans are using it. Yes. And so one thing for machine to be better at communicating with human is actually to take advantage of what humans can do. Since you're a little baby, would interact with the physical world. Like the law of physics are easy for you. What's heavy. I know to grab that. I can probably do something really difficult like that. We are master of dealing with the tangible physical world, and that's something the computer machine could take advantage. So far the smartphone is really like the master of everything, like the Internet of Things, everything you can interact with your phone. I think it's not necessarily a really good interface. It's really easy because everybody has an iPhone or a smartphone, and the touchscreen is really a versatile way to interact with anything. But I think we're going to interact more with objects, like the nest, for example, with a real interaction. We have a feedback. Just go back to the smartphone. Something that's really lame with the smartphone is like you have no real feedback. You press, not sure if it has been pressed. You have to look. It's not really a rich interaction. There's no really you can do it with if you close your eyes, you need to look at your screen. It's not really a rich experience. Not really, you don't really have fun. I mean, you don't really have an emotion or pleasure just to touching the screen. It's much more, if you turn a dial, well, you can close your eyes. You don't have to, exactly how much you turn. It's like a really richer experience. So I think in the future, all these objects are going to be smarter. The computers are going to be, embedded in everything. Everything is going to be kind of a machine, and they're being connected and autonomous. And so you'll be able to interact in a natural way, like you used to interact with object way. So maybe just like the skeuomorphism of object, but that's the thing we know to do. So I think we're probably going to go back to that, and I feel much better personally turning a real dial than turning like an imaginary dial I can see, like that. Yes.
What are your thoughts on integrating tech with, psychology? What if you're able to give AI more human feelings, so you can kind of predict what you're living based on our interaction with it? So say if we're using the next, and we ask them, and I say, put this picture, and we need to adjust it. It's 72. And you're like, it's kind of hot. Can you turn it down? What are your thoughts on if we could get AI to know how much to turn it down by?
Yeah, it's definitely something where we need the machine to be more humans. In order for them to communicate like humans, they also need to think more like humans. So that's really a good point, and it's why we try this object being smart objects. It's like we need, by being smart, we mean being more like humans, not necessarily having more capacity. I think now that's pretty useful for people doing research to have more powerful, to do things more complex with computers. But I think for the general public like us, we don't want the computer to do more. We just want the computer to do it better. Pretty much like what we have been doing the last 20 years just like moving what we used to do in different ways and move them in this platform so we can actually, you can manipulate. It's more like you have your object is virtual, you can manipulate easily, it doesn't take space, you don't have to have a typewriter and something else next to it and something else next to it. You can just have in one thing. So I think that was most of it. I think we have the point where we're like, I can do a lot with my computer. I'm not sure, I don't use, pretty much in my day-to-day life, I just sit in front of my computer. I'm not using anything else. So I think we did a good job at kind of smushing everything in one place. So definitely, I think the next step will be not to give more power to this, but make it more smarter, so we can actually we have less effort working. Actually, don't have to spend my whole day in front of my computer. I can just tell what I want, and I can go to the beach. So another like exciting thing coming. So that's a voice control. So it's kind of got in what I'm saying, having like a more natural interaction with your computer. So you have the Echo, Siri, or Cortana, and I'm angry because it has been so long in the making. It's not even good now. I remember like 20 years ago, I was using Dragon speaking, natural speaking, something like that. It was pretty decent. Siri is not much better than this software. So I don't know what these guys have been doing for 20 years, but the progress are really slow, and it's because it's difficult to understand natural language. It's really something really subtle. I'm sure you guys are struggling to get my accent. So Siri is like crazy. He hates my accent. He just doesn't want to give me what I ask him. Ask him what time is it. He tell me like, do you want me to search on internet? No, I want to know what time is it. And I'm just going crazy argument with it. And dubbing, I'm sorry. Yes?
So maybe you might cover this, but you've mentioned both gestures and voice already, and both of those technologies kind of seem like they lack the precision of what we already use now, and that's the main stopping point, sensing gestures in the air, or sensing your voice. So do you approach those as, we're getting there, but the technology just hasn't caught up yet, and we're waiting for the progress? Or do you think they inherently will never be as precise as touch or as physical controls, and we just should focus on the other ones more?
I think they will be. They will be. Yeah. We're getting there. There's lots of technology. I think I don't know if it's not really based on power. Just like people maybe they believe in it, they work on it. Like more effort into making it work. Usually, for like voice control, you need to have enough power to get to this data. But I think we're getting there. It's getting better. Actually, motion tracking is like now like not an issue. It's getting really easy to do. So I think that's where we're going. And yes, that's what I'm saying right here. And I like this expression, kind of similar to what you're saying. I think we're like in this uncanny valley. I think we say that about like 3D representation of characters, for example. At some point, it's not realistic, like Mario, or like your PS2, hundreds of polygons, guys. And at some point, they become like so real, but not enough to be believable. It's like that's a creepy zone, like your characters. You see like this kind of bad, 3D movies, or like it looks fake. You can see it and it's weird. So I think voice control, we at this stage, like if I go back there, actually they're all creepy. They're like, you think they're human and you start to engage with them and you get angry because they obviously don't understand what to say, or just half of it, or in some ways. So I think we're like in this uncanny valley for voice control and from other technology. It's frustrating. I can tell you how much I'm angry about it. It's like a picture from 2001, the Space Odyssey. It was already there. It was what they described, and we are barely there. Something also it's missing with voice control in all these devices. When you speak with people, you have a feedback, and the feedback is like, I see your eyes, I see you looking at me. I see like she's not looking, she don't care about what I say. You have a feedback. You know exactly, in real time if like you understand or not. With your facial, with your eyes, your facial expression, and all that it's missing in these devices. Like talk, and you have this big lag, and you wait. Things go to the server and come back, and eventually, if you said the right thing or not. So that's like really a weakness of this technology. It's something we kind of also a bit lost using, for example, the touchscreen has no feedback at all. Like at first, if you remember, I think some phone where you're pressing, you get a little vibration, right? And people say, oh, we don't need that anymore, we're good enough. And so we kind of lost this idea to have a feedback when we interact, and that's kind of the problem with these devices. So VR and AR, virtual reality or augmented reality, this is the future of computing. I believe it is for few different reasons. A big problem when working on this little screen, it's like it's small. That's the space. And it feels like, when I was in my small apartment in Paris, it was kind of this size, right? So I was walking this, and when I went to eat, I had to move my things and put my plate here. And when I was done, I had to move it. I went to sleep, I had to put this around, flip it, sleep. It was that. So when I work on my desktop, it feels the same. I want to check an email, I have to close Photoshop, open the mailer. If I want to get some information to reply an email, I have to open my browser, add it, and it's just that. So even if I add like another screen, I'm still in this like finite space. What's new with VR and AR, since you're like in 360, where your space is free. You turn around and you have more space, and you have more space. It's maybe not infinite, but it's pretty close to it, and you can pretty move in this space and make room. At least you increase your potential much more, like having like this little window. And it's not just being annoying to go from one task to another one. It's also productivity wise. Humans are not really good at multitasking. If you have to do two things at the same time, it's not going to take twice the time. It's going to take 3 or 5 times. I think there's like some psychology study where you can try, like write numbers, and just like with a simple thing, if you have to write a number and compute and do another number in a different list, it's not going to take the same time than writing the one list and the other list. So I think if we want to be more productive, VR and AR is definitely a really good platform for that. There's definitely like a sense of presence when you're in VR and AR. You feel like it's more true than what you try to represent. And since we're really good at interacting with like real things, well, we're better at interacting with things that looks more real. So like for a simulation, for example, there's definitely more value to be to have like a better representation of this situation. Just to have a little bit of context, because we call VR everything these days. So I just want to kind of go back to that. What we call virtual reality, augmented reality, or video 360. So virtual reality, which is kind of the generic term, but really it's supposed to be more like for gaming. It's like some digital content you can see in 360 degree space. Augmented reality, and actually augmented reality is even worse than that, because we call augmented reality different things. We also call augmented reality just when you can overlay with your phone. You kind of look to the camera, to the lens of your camera, and you can overlay things, and we call that augmented reality. It's kind of true, it kind of augments your reality. We also call augmented reality some stuff like that, which is pretty much just a little screen that just in the corner of your eyes, and you can get information here.
Is that Meta?
It's a Recon jet. And so it's somewhat, it kind of augment you. It don't really augment the reality. It's more like a wearable, something you wear, like that. And you have what I call the real augmented reality, like the Meta, for example, the Microsoft HoloLens, where actually overlay some digital content over the 3D. And Video 360 it's like recorded on real time, some like real life footage, which is kind of fundamentally kind of 2D because it's projected to like your your screen or the sensor of the camera that we call it, so kind of and everything. Not only there's like 3D stereoscopic video. We have kind of like like the 3D movies. We have the feel of the 3D, but you can get around or move around. It's just like a kind of more like a linear experience. Well, like in VR, you can actually move in this space. This space virtually exists, so you can move around. When you record, you just record like one point of view. Yeah.
Do you think there are applications possible where you would have a virtual reality environment, but as you're walking around in the environment, you're getting augmented reality, kind of, the mixed content on top of the virtual reality? Do you think that's
absolutely
emerging too?
Yeah, both ways actually. But you could be in virtual reality and have a real thing coming. It's probably going to happen just for some practical reason, because when you're in your you consume some like VR content, Samsung VR, whatever. It's just like for safety, you don't know what's going around. Your house could be on fire, or somebody can come, and push you a cliff or whatever. So I think like in the future, all these companies are going to add sensors like depth sensors, so you actually can see if something comes close, and actually you will pop to your virtual world, and so you will be able to do that. I think it's going to be pretty soon to have like this kind of interaction back and forth.
Or like the Oculus, they package a controller, so you don't actually have to physically walk around, but you can move around.
So when I say I talk about 3D, it's not totally true. It's a bit of a stretch because VR is not inherently 3D. But UI has been for a long time 2D anyway, and for different reasons. Because first we started to represent things in 2D, from like the early paintings, even like things were really in 2D, and like people said to add like perspective. It was a big invention in painting to add perspective, but it was still in 2D. And the people who started to design virtual screens, people that came from like the printing world, and they were designing magazine or things that are being printed in 2D, so they kind of translate that in 2D. So it's more like a form now. It's when you have a form on a website, it's pretty much the same as your form on paper. Sometimes you have like multiple page. People didn't say like, oh, we're going to design like more like a dialogue, when really a form, it's actually we translate on 2D what's more like a dialogue with somebody. So maybe in the future in VR, instead of thinking of form, you'll have more like a dialogue experience with a machine. I don't know, but it's a reason why most of the screens have been heavily in 2D, and we have a hard time to embrace the 3D. I remember actually back in the late 90s. People try to make content in 3D in screen, because actually this screen can represent 3D, even if the screen is 2D. We have 3D capacity. We can represent that. Same as in VR, your screen is in 2D. Just like we close, and you have it's an illusion that you have 3D. So we try not to use VRML, and if we understand, remember like Second Life, like it was a Facebook in 3D, and people, I guess, were not ready for that, and maybe there was like how much value you have, how much comfort, and it didn't really work that way. 3D is still heavily used for gaming, for example. That's really an application, but I think there's like more reason that we're going to come to that. I'm supposed to talk about that now. Yeah. So one big reason why we stick with 2D is because the way to interact with the content was on 2D, and it's still on 2D. When you interact with your screen, you interact with your mouse on a 2D plane. You don't interact in 3D. Or with a touchscreen, it's the same thing. Your touchscreen is flat, and you don't really have a way to tell him to go further or not. It's why like 3D software are kind of really difficult to use. Not just like skilled people, trained people that use 3D software, because you have to kind of map the third dimension with some keyboard, and people have a time to get it because it's not natural. It's not like it's not like a one-to-one relation. You move right, things move right, left move left. So I think that's one reason why 3D content somewhat failed in our way to interact with computers, like website. You see like these flat things, with a little bit of shadow, a little bit of 3D, but we don't really take full advantage of that. I think VR is going to change that. Because that's a 3D representation, and so 3D representation implies a 3D interaction. So, for example, if so that's the meta, that's the old version of the meta already. In this way, you can see like anybody can imagine being really good at sculpting something, because I know to do that. Kids know to play Play-Doh, so I can do the same thing with the virtual content. So if you interact in 3D, you can easily build 3D, and I think that's probably going to be a big change in your day-to-day life, because pretty soon you're going to be able to model your one thing, print it, and you'll be able to, instead of to go to the store to buy a fork, you'll just 3D print it and draw it, or if you need whatever, some plumbing, whatever is your imagination is. So I think it's definitely going to be a big change, and it's going to be much easier because you'll be able to interact in VR with that, because just inherently, or not necessarily inherently, you could imagine using VR with a mouse, but it doesn't work that well, right? Because you're so engaged that you want to engage with the thing. So it's not like a one-to-one relation. I think that's two things are coming at the same time, and oh yeah, now it makes sense. Actually, I was mad at Oculus first because I said oh, that's our controller. It's an Xbox controller. I had that when I was a kid. How are you going to use this new technology with this old controller? It doesn't make any sense. So they can free work, and they came with 3D controller, motion controller, and so you interact in 3D, and you have a 3D representation, an interactive 3D representation. So you can't fix it. I'm not sure if they're going to ship the new version with that. I think they're still going to ship with this first. So it's kind of still, I think it's embarrassing for me. HTC is much better. The HTC Vive is a much better platform because it's inherently you're inherently in a 3D space. They track your head, they track everything. It works very well. It's really really nice experience. I'm just going to kind of different type of devices we can use with a Google Cardboard. Right here. It's I think it's a great experience for the mass. For $20, you get a Google Cardboard, and you can get a taste of what's VR. And it's pretty easy to share some short experience because it's not really comfortable. You're not going to be engaged in something long. You have to hold it. It's not really easy to use. It's not really comfortable to use. But to share a 3D YouTube video, to share some experience, like a skydiver, jumping or something like that, it's great. It's I was right here for $20. You can't get any better of that. I think people are going to start to learn how to consume VR content, because of Google Cardboard. Actually, I think I kind of get more engaged in VR. Working in the game industry, I've been kind of in contact a bit with different VR technology along the years, but I like this oh yeah moment when I got a Google Cardboard and I look at the New York Times application, and it was wow, it was a big shock for me because I could really feel the presence even with the the resolution is not great. I think it's just good enough where it really works. And obviously the Samsung Gear VR. It brings us to, so how do we interact in VR? What's the user interface? And we're kind of getting back to what's the physical controller for the device. We're not even yet at the point we can really design or like set standard about what's going to be really the visual design, what's the visual language for that. To we have start to have some ideas about that. So all these devices, they use a different way to interact, which is kind of challenging for people who want to design because they're all a bit different. The Samsung Gear VR, you have this little touchpad on the side. You can click. The Google Cardboard has just one click. The controllers have different type of buttons. So it's kind of confusing to have like all that. And it was a case, like when mouse had like one button and some of that three and like a wheel. I think get more standard. Pretty much like all the mouse now works the same. Something that's kind of new and interesting with the Samsung Gear VR is like the gaze detection. So once you look at something, and if you look for long enough, it will select and active something. What's not really good, it put like some new effort in like your neck. You have to do like really subtle movement to select something, and like people are not really trained to do that yet. So I'm not sure if it's going to be something dominant in the future, or if it's going to fail. Because my mom, she doesn't know to use a mouse, and she has precision like this. I've been using mouse for a long time. I'm really good. I can select like a pixel and the next pixel, and have a really good skill with my my mouse. With my neck, not so much. If I have to just use with my neck, select one pixel and the other one, it's going to be difficult. There's some variation of this technology with the Fove or Fove, I don't know how we pronounce that. And actually a little camera track actually where you are looking at, so it's less you moving like this, this vector, but it's like your eyes just moving. And I think we're much better at that because I don't move my head, but I can look right, look left, and I'm pretty good at that. So I wasn't able to try it, so I think it's still like in development, but it's something that could have something that would be really interesting, because if you look at something, imagine if you just do it with your eyes, like take something, drag and drop here and move, and that would be really, really fast. So it's something that could be exciting. The Google Glass, not this one, which is kind of a fail. It's kind of similar to that. It's just kind of like a little smartphone screen you overlay on the corner of your eyes. I think it just failed because it didn't bring value to the consumer it was trying to address. I think it's probably going to be something people are going to use when it brings value for like professionals, when you need some specific information at some specific place, and that's what I'm trying to do with my company Agenea. So we try to target athletes where they really need to do something specific at the right time. To whatever sports, you need to have the information right in time, and it means you're going to win or not, or you're going to succeed at what you do or not, and so it makes sense for you to have like this information just next to your eye. Like day-to-day life, to know what's the weather like, you can look at the window, and like if you have got emails, it doesn't bring too much value to receive your text, in your eye or like in your thing. Sometimes it's like my friends and stupid things, don't need to see it right away. I think it's why kind of somewhat halfway failed. I think they're going to continue the project, and they're putting lots of budget to get the new version. It's going to be more to professionals. Something that's really exciting. So that's a new Meta Vision. I'm really a big fan of Meta. I think it's going to be a great product. I mean, the HoloLens is also some potential as well. We can also work collaboratively with each other because we can share the same screen, which is something. It's not typical to VR. It's something we could have done before. There's like some screen with like can receive multiple input, multiple or like you have some these big tables with multiple touch. When different people can work together and you can different things, so to collaborate. But I think inherently in VR it's going to make more sense because you interact with the space. People know to interact with space just because of this, this realism to the experience. We're going to be able to replicate some other experience. Also, there are also some technical recommend that like this technology that we wanted to have on screen, they were not ready yet, and now they're ready. But instead of applying to an old type of representation, let's use them on a new type of representation in VR. So I'm not sure we're going to see big screen where people, like in Minority Report, where people interact together. Well, let's do it directly in 3D in VR. It makes more sense. And so that's the Microsoft HoloLens. Yeah.
How are these projections coming up?
So this picture is actually fake because this thing doesn't exist. That's virtual. So each person see it, projected.
What's the difference between in VR also we see similar like in our device.
Mm-hmm.
So how's metavision different from?
Well, the difference is like you can see it like on top of you just overlay like what's your environment. So you can put something on this table and we can all share it and see it. In VR we could do it, but we would have, I guess, avatar in a kind of virtual world, and we could interact. We could do the same thing, in VR and AR. Just a layer you add on top of it. But I think it's an important layer because that's a layer we know how to use, we know to interact. And I guess, maybe that's my next HoloLens. So UI is definitely not really defined for this object. You see, even like the input are different. So the Microsoft HoloLens use voice control and some kind of gesture recognition. They use kind of this tap to select something. I think it's still a calf. I'm not in the development of that, so I'm not exactly sure where they're at and how it's going to work.
Leap motion is similar to that. You've seen it.
Leap motion, yeah.
Gesture controls.
You mean the leap motion, not leap
just
magic.
a sensor, yeah.
Yes, little sensor. You can use that with your VR headset, for example. It doesn't work. There's a new version that's supposed to work much better called Orion. It's going to be integrated in what? In maybe Meta or Oculus.
Like you can attach it to like any VR.
Yes, yeah. I think they have signed something where they're going to be the technology used in like some of these devices. I don't remember if it's Meta or Oculus. And it's coming a long way. And we're not exactly sure like what kind of technology we're going to use. It's the Magic Leap. I was confirmed with like the Magic Leap, Leap Motion. It's above. So Leap Motion is a pretty simple technology, just infrared. So like there's like other way to send thing. You can do it to camera, like with the Kinect, for example. I've seen like some really good, interesting demo that use just camera and just like consumer grade camera that can actually track movement and do that. So I think there's a lot of progress. I think another kind of version of the Kinect as well you can use in VR to track that kind of decent enough. They're never really perfect. Like the one I've seen, for example, it connects to Bluetooth, so there's some lag. But I think we're getting there. And when it works pretty well. And we pretty have to adjust our gesture for the devices because some, for example, with if you've seen the demo for the Magic Leap, the motion leap motion. But they try to show like how precise the system, and they're not quite there. You can grab some little pale flowers and things like that, and it's kind of, I guess it works in good condition if everything goes well. In real life, it's not something they're good at yet, so you probably don't want to build all the way you interact with it. So if you just need this, it's going to be perfect. Like if you just need like a swipe or like just something simple like this, it's going to work very well.
So what do you do in those situations where you need to build a user interface for something like this, and you realize that the technology hasn't caught up yet with the gesture technology?
Mhm.
Do you build it around a different sort of input, or do you wait? Or do you try to use what's available?
You try to use what's available. You just try to find, what's the limit, what's the precision you need. You obviously don't want to make a little button. You have to click like this. It don't work very well. Like for the gaze selection, if your area is like you make your interface the same as on a desktop. Where like your small button like this, it's pretty difficult. If it's just like right, left, like some simple area like this, it's going to be much better. So you can just to adjust for that. It was the same with like with smartphone. At first, you can't really have like it's like a cursor like on the desktop. Where you can really go click a pixel. Here you have like I think it's like 27 pixels or something. You have to when you create an app for touchscreens, the buttons are much bigger because with your finger, actually, you can't have the same precision that you would have with a mouse. So it's the same thing here, pretty much. Same thing for voice control. I think you could, if you want now to create something using voice control and you want like to have like this fluent discussion, like we're trying to do Siri, like with the way they market it, it's not going to work. It's going to be a good experience if it's just saying oh, or oh, right, left. Some things are really well defined. You can retrain your system to do that well. Well, it's going to work. And like in cars, for example, like there's lots of voice control, and these things are pretty decent because they're like they don't have like they don't try to understand everything you're going to say. They just interpret some really defined commands. I think you have like your dream, and you have to scale it down to what you have right now. So kind of a summary of what could be the interaction in VR. So we talk about the gaze detection, motion tracking. So I think motion tracking is a word that's coming a long way. I think it's pretty efficient. You can also have like sensors on your glove. So maybe you just have a little thing you put at the top of your finger and you can track that. And this works very well. You have a really good precision with that. Something I forgot to mention, you have to take into account just like fatigue. Like again, we're really good at moving a mouse like this. Even like I have a big Wacom tablet, I have to draw like in the whole time. I'm tired. I can't do that for a long time because I was not trained to do that. People a long time ago, they used to write big map. Well, they can work on a big thing. You have big movement like this. I'm not used to it, so I think maybe people will get used to interact and will get a bit stronger and have strong arms and be able to interact into this space. So we're probably going to be more fit by working in VR than we use at this like real state. So more natural interaction. Something that's really exciting is like these tangible objects. They're not limited to just being physical objects. They can become this magical object. So like kind of the nest, it's like in a really specific way. It's not that exciting and magical, but you could imagine having like this physical object that can go over like their typical capacity. Like you have a switch, and this switch you can reprogram this switch to switch anything. That's kind of like the Internet of Thing ID, and you can do it with your phone. But you'll be able to now like to map like any object to do whatever you want, and you'll be able to interact that. So you can choose what type of interaction you like to do what you have to do. Something that's also really interesting, I try to explain here, because we're not really used to the virtual 3D world. We don't like manipulate that too much, except in gaming. We're pretty good at doing abstract thing in 2D. Like you have like your graph, and you have like an X, you have your time and your value, and we can like have all kind of interesting representation, all kind of different ways to display the data in 2D, and sometimes it could even be interactive, and you can click and get more information, and you interact with that. I think in 3D we bring a new dimension with that. So we just like going to increase the power of like all these type of representations, and it's something that could have lots of be really powerful. Instead of mapping XYZ to XYZ in a virtual world, like in a video game, you just want your game to be realistic. So when you go in Z, if you go in Z world, now you could have like if you think about maybe what could be your virtual operating system, maybe in XYZ you have your documents, and in XY, sorry, and in Z you can have the history, so you can see a file, and you move this file in the Z axis, and you can go see different version of your file, or maybe you can manipulate that in 3D world, have 3 different view of the same thing. And you have also like this magical aspect. We can have like something that looks real, but maybe all this space, kind of like when you have like this little icon and you open it to be this big picture on your desktop. You could do the same thing, but you're not like limited to this screen. You have like just all this space around you, and you can move things in one place, and they could be in this place, but also in this other place. You could arrange things in different way, and people are also really good at working with space. Some people, I don't know how you guys work. If you like to have some reference on this side and like create your arrangement, or like even in your desktop to have like your window here, and you have like this, and that's the way you like to work for this specific task. Well, you could do that in VR and like move all your things around, and you have this really rich environment, and you can say, okay, I close everything, and you close everything. That's like one view, and you can have another view to do something else. And you can, it's not like removed. Like here, you have to close that, do that, and it's over. You have to, rearrange that again. That's something you can somewhat do on your screen, on your 2D screen. But in 2D world, it becomes epic. Like you have like this crazy thing. I put this on the floor. I put like my different applications aside, and you have like this space. It's like being able to rearrange your space. So like imagine like in your bedroom, you can put the TV on this side and chill, and you can change it. So it's this kind of thing we could do in the future. So what does need improvement? Well, obviously that's kind of what we were saying. All these input devices, they have to be better. Here. Or we have to be better at using it. So I need to train my neck, or we need to be better at having big move and like grabbing a pixel and doing all this type of stuff. And probably with the next generation, you will be there. We also need more content and more application, because so far there's not much to experiment in VR or in AR. But it's probably going to come in the next few years. And there's also some social issue with VR, like kind of the same thing we say every time there's like a new technology coming. Like people are going to to confuse what's virtual, what's real. They're going to be stuck in these bubbles, not going to communicate with each other. So we have, I guess, to reinvent some way to communicate in VR between people, and like all this thing will migrate to this new platform. That's it.